The St. Louis Cardinals are a season-high 9 games over 500 and lurking in a very competitive NL Central. On today's episode, we'll answer questions about Matthew Liberatore's workload, thoughts on the job Oli Marmol has done thus far, what could the closer role look like come August, and some trade talk as we enter the month of July. All that and more on this episode of the Viva El Birdos podcast.
Smith corks one into right, down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy.
Breeze hits it in the air to center. We will see you tomorrow night.
This is the Viva El Birdos podcast on SB Nation. Welcome into another episode of the Viva El Birdos podcast. I am your host, Jake Wood, and joined as always by the writing staff, site manager, Heather, Gabe Simons, Adam Akbani, and newest member of the site and show, Scott Plaza. Today, we are doing our June monthly reader mailbag, as we do each and every month, to give you, the readers, the chance to have what's most topical on your mind discussed. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of this episode, I wanted to take this opportunity to properly introduce Scott and have him tell us a little bit about himself and his background and kind of his path that led him here to Viva El Birdos. So without further ado, Scott Plaza, welcome to Viva El Birdos, and tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
All right, thank you, Jake. I'm very happy to be part of the Viva El Birdos team and happy to be part of this podcast as much as possible. So to quickly kind of go with where I started and where I'm at now. So I played baseball in high school, had the opportunity to play in college before transferring over to a four-year school. Kind of developed into what ended up being our number one my senior year at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. And just the talent of guys around us. We had a couple guys play professionally on that team. We won the 2014 national championship for the Division III College World Series, and I was named the Division III World Series Most Outstanding Player with 16 shutout innings in that national championship, including a 9-inning complete game shutout in the national title game, which then ended up getting an opportunity to play with the indie ranks. I had a couple draft options and interests that just didn't pan out. Being a 22-year-old coming out of a Division III college, shockingly, teams don't really find a lot of interest in that. So I worked my way through the indie ranks, played in the Frontier League with Schaumburg, the Schaumburg Boomers, ended up tearing my shoulder, so had to get that figured out, got that taken care of, and then a couple years later ended up playing in California in the now college league, Pacific Association, playing with the Sonoma Stompers, and that's where I got most of my professional experience playing in there. Then I got the opportunity to move up into the indie ranks, where I played with the American Association. Had a contract with the Cleburne Railroaders down in Dallas, Texas. As I got there in spring training, I got the call to the manager's office that they wanted to have a word. I learned quickly that that was not a good thing, and I found out that I was released for none other than the 55-year-old Rafael Palmeiro, because I was told, quote, "Palmeiro sells more tickets than you do," and I had no argument for that. So then from there, ended up playing with the Gary South Shore Railcats within the American Association, had the opportunity to pitch against the Cleburne Railroaders, where I ended up getting got a good win against them and got to stick it to my old pitching coach, who gave me a good old hat tip and high five after that one. And then I bounced around Canada and California, Texas, kind of all around that area, before having Tommy John at the end of the 2018 season. And now I am a high school business teacher and high school softball coach in the Chicagoland area. So that's kind of my quick little baseball resume and why I feel like I can share my thoughts with everybody else.
And Scott, one thing I wanted to ask, you mentioned Sonoma Stompers, and that immediately turned my attention to a book that I had read when I was in high school. It was called The Only Rule Is That It Has to Work.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably very familiar with it, playing for the Stompers, where you had Guys who I know Ben Lindbergh has some posts on Fangraphs, and Sam Miller is prominent within our space. That I think that was a little bit before you actually played for the Stompers, but were
Mm.
there any remnants of, when they ran the team back in that season to when you played, and there was any sort of strategy that you found that was kind of adopted from when they were at the helm of the team to when you played a couple years after?
Oh, 100%. Theo Fightmaster, who's featured very prominently within that book, was still the general manager at the time, and he put a lot of faith in me to be able to come in there and do that. And what I mean, part of that book is like it says, is if it works, like why not do it? And I had the opportunity to play with Stacy Piagno and Kelsey Whitmore, who are Kelsey especially is one of the most prominent female baseball players in the entire baseball world here.
Yep.
And Stacy she was the first female to receive a win in a professional game setting in, I don't know, I think it was like 70 years or so, and I got to be there for that. And that was one of the most, like I said, one of the most incredible experiences that I've had is playing with that team in California. It was a big group of people that they understood the level they were playing at and all used it as that stepping stone. And the faith that the staff put into it. Yoshi, our manager, is now in the red system, along with our catcher Isaac Wenrick, who's in the red system. Just a lot of guys that just wanted to learn how to do the game a little bit better, all through Theo Fightmaster's kind of theory of building the game. And like just because it's not traditional, doesn't mean it's not going to be an effective way to run a ball club. And he proved that with the success that we had in there. And it was just an unreal experience to be able to do that. And it really opened my eyes to a different baseball experience, especially having Kelsey and Stacy being in that clubhouse, being a part of what we were trying to do, and just showing that baseball is like truly the world's game, and there's no one way to do it. And that was an awesome, awesome, awesome experience. And Adam, I'm glad you brought that up because that's definitely something that really shaped my entire baseball career was being in Sonoma.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really propelled me into getting interested in analytics, and was I kind of I really attribute that book from becoming just from base fan, just using like base arguments, and when I was 15 years old, obviously, to really thinking about the game in a different perspective. So I really credit that book, and I'd always look up to Ben and Sam for, opening my eyes to that from a very young age. So for sure.
Well, and it is a great segue into our first question from our readers. Comes to us from CR Threlkeld. He asks, is there any concern for Matthew Liberatore's increase in innings pitched? It used to be a thing that teams would shelve a pitcher if there was a big increase in innings pitched, like what the Nationals did with Steven Strasburg. He said, I thought the concern was for injuries in the following season. And of course, that will be something that the Cardinals, I'm sure, will monitor going into next season. But Scott, I wanted to kind of get your perspective on this and just kind of how you are viewing Matthew Liberatore's use after another outstanding start today against Cleveland. Just kind of your overall thoughts with how you think the Cardinals are going to kind of manage his workload and approach that.
Yeah, the workload concern is definitely something that is very real. I mean, we saw with Liberatore kind of struggling with his command today, and Adam, I know you had a kind of facetious tweet going towards our group chat today, but when you kind of look at it in college, I mean, I pitched once a week and I threw 100 innings was my max. And then you go to professional independent league, you're playing 100 game seasons, you're pitching once a week. And then you go to the higher levels and you're pitching every 5 days, twice a week. You're playing that 120, 150, then the 162 game season. And it got to the point in my own personal time where every Monday in the independent league was a day off. So if you pitched any day, Wednesday to Sunday, you knew you were going to have a full week's worth of rest before your next start. And I got to the point where I was looking at the schedule where I'm like, oh man, I really hope I don't pitch on Tuesday this week because it really does take a toll on you. And I had a tweet today actually of like people just being like, I can't believe, professional players need off days. They're playing a game for a living. And it's like, well, you don't really see the whole story of, being to the ballpark 3 to 4 hours early, playing a 3 hour game in pants in 110-degree weather, staying an hour or two after the game, staying in hotels, traveling. The Cardinals have had two off days this week or this month. Like that takes a toll on anybody. I mean, I'm a teacher. I have all summer off, and I'm still taking my PTO days during the year because I'm just gassed at some certain times. I mean, thinking about these guys should be able to play every day is just not realistic. So I think in Libby's kind of where he's at right now, that the workload is a little bit of a concern, but where they're at right now and how well he's been pitching, minus the 5 walks today, I think you got to run him out, keep going, use the All-Star break as a time to kind of reset his timeline. But then, depending on what happens, trade deadline, injuries, and things like that, there are potential options with I was looking at how the White Sox dealt with Garrett Crochet at the end of the year,
Exactly.
where they're like, we know he's not going to be with us. Where obviously the Cardinals are like, we need Liberatore for the near future. But pitching 3 to 4 innings at a time, pairing him with somebody else. So I was kind of looking at maybe TK Roby would be somebody that they could kind of piggyback between Libby and Roby if they need to come the second half of the season. But if where he's pitching as well as he is right now, I think you kind of got to ride it out. I know next year is probably the bigger concern, but with a proper rest recovery and the strength and conditioning staff is next level at that top level. That I think yes, there needs to be some type of watch on Libby's innings, but putting a hard cap on it is something that I'd be kind of wary of, especially with the Cardinals only 2.5 games out of the division.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad you mentioned Garrett Crochet, Scott, because that's the name that I had in mind that was pretty recent. With last year, like he's been a full-time reliever in his career, a la, when he was drafted. If I remember correctly, he skipped the minor leagues altogether because it was the COVID season, and he was pitching out of the bullpen for the White Sox for a couple of years before he was actually moved into the rotation, and he's now the ace that he is with Boston. That being said, with Matthew Liberatore, I think one thing that we can consider, obviously, we want to be very careful with his innings going forward, but his max career high in the minor leagues was 124 and two-thirds innings in 2021, followed by 115 last year in 2022. And granted, he's been pitching out of the bullpen the past few years, but I think there is some, longevity that comes with the fact that he has pitched over 100 innings before. It will take some ramping up to get back to that. I don't think that I think there's definite room for struggles as he gets into the 100, 110, 120 mark and beyond. But like you said, right now, Scott, I think the best course of action going forward is to just have him out there every fifth game. And then, luckily the Cardinals are in a situation where they've got guys, like you said, Takeo Roby, Quinn Matthews, hopefully can rebound here. He's been up and down with every other start. They got Michael McGreevy, Gordon Graceffo, who can give you innings. There's quite a few guys on there that we've mentioned before who are finally making that turnaround to potentially be big league ready. And with a few of these guys, with September looming in the later parts of the season coming forward, I really think that they could benefit those guys throwing innings in the major leagues if a guy like Matthew Liberatore were to falter with the higher workload. I think it's even next year, you work your way towards that full starter load, but right now you ride him out.
Well, and part of that too is that he's been extremely healthy. Knock
Mhm.
on every piece of wood that I have in this room right now. So if there were, shoulder or elbow concerns kind of building into the season, then sure. But he's shown the ability, and he's always had like that ceiling of being that workhorse, rotation option to where let's see if he can be that, because they've had enough of the yo-yoing around between the bullpen and the rotation that it's got to be such a relief for him to know that he is taking the ball every fifth day and knows what he needs to do to keep his body ready for that. And Adam, you touched on it like very well. Like, let's just see what he's got until he hits that wall, if there is one that comes about.
So going from Matthew Liberatore to the man who manages him, this next question I'm going to throw Gabe your direction. comes to us from Double Hot Dog, and he asks, Skip Schumacher is the next Cardinal manager in waiting, is he not? And to throw in some a point of reference here, Bob Nightingale in his Sunday morning column this morning mentioned how if the season had ended today, that his vote, and he believes many others, would be for Oli Marmol for Manager of the Year. And his argument was based around expectations for the Cardinals entering the season and how dramatically they've seemed to overperform those expectations. What are your thoughts on that question, Gabe?
My first answer would be no. I don't think he's the manager in waiting. And I have a question. Would we have been able to predict the last 3 Cardinal manager hires? I don't think we could have, right?
Probably not.
Marmol, Schilt, and then Matheny. I think those all 3 were kind of like, oh, okay. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think so.
I don't, until like pretty close up, until there was some pretty solid evidence from reputable writers, I don't think we would have been able to guess or anticipate.
Schilt became the interim manager, so I guess that's a little different, but
Yeah.
I'm not as I feel like all this speculation over who's the next Cardinals manager. I don't know that they're going to be as predictable as people think. I don't think they're necessarily going to go like Pujols or Molina or Schumacher because, I mean, not even just because they haven't done that really in the past, but also just, Schumacher at least has experience, but Pujols and Molina, besides managing in their in the WBC, I think we don't know how they would manage over 162 games. So I don't know. I find the who's the next manager stuff kind of tiring at this point, and as long as we're winning, I kind of just hope it dies. But I don't think it really ever is going to die. I think we're just keep getting until takes over, until Bloom takes over, and maybe he's not fired. Maybe then people will be like, okay, I guess Marmol's the manager.
Yeah, there are certain segments in the fan base who have certain feelings about Oli, and I don't feel like no matter how well he does, they are ever going to get past those feelings for him. He's done a tremendous job this season, like full stop. He has done a terrific job at managing personalities. Guys are giving full buy-in on what the Cardinals are doing. He's getting the best out of his players. There are guys who are overperforming their expectations. The Cardinals are at their high water mark right now of 9 games over 500 for the season. I never thought that they would reach 9 games over 500 this season. And that's not to say that I'm traditionally a very optimistic fan in nature. And so for me to say something like that, not that I'm, the be all end all on where I stand on things, but just the fact that I didn't think they would ever reach to where they are now says a lot to me at least. And I think going forward, a lot of Cardinals fans should have their eyes open to the very, very real possibility that Oli Marmol is going to be coaching or managing the Cardinals in 2026 and beyond. Because at this point he is performing, in a season where evaluation is everything, and you better believe that the manager's job is being evaluated as these players continue to grow and mature into more major league success, and watching how Oli does it on a day-to-day basis. And I think that what we're experiencing now is Oli Marmol just continuing to solidify his role. The other part that I kind of wanted to address that we kind of talked about pre-show was the fact that there is a line of thought that whenever you have regime change at the very top, that ultimately that immediately links the manager is going to be out, regardless. And I don't see that as this situation, because obviously we're watching a very unique situation unfold where Chaim Bloom has already been in, the organization for a year prior already, and is now another year in, having constant conversations with Oli. Oli talks about it whenever he does his KMOX spot with the Gas House Gang on every Tuesday, that the Cardinals, that communication is happening between Oli and between Bloom to the point where they know each other. They already have a pre-existing working relationship with each other. They are familiar with each other. And so if Chaim Bloom is liking everything that he is seeing and continuing to see, why would he change that? Why would you mess with success in that scenario? So I think that the conversation is worth having. But to this point, Oli has done nothing to deserve losing his job this season in his evaluation year. So, again, kudos to Oli and a great season so far. And barring a second half collapse where everything goes exceptionally poorly, I think we can pretty well expect Oli to be the manager next season.
And I see that Ollie's personality kind of matches this younger persona of the team. I mean, you see that the cameras shoot over to him multiple times during the game. He's top step. He's going back and forth with the umpires, with the scouts on the bench, with the players. I mean, he is managing with energy, and this is something I was talking about in another group chat. Is that Goldschmidt, he deserves his flowers and everything, but when you have that stoic, no personality kind of as your leader of the team, that kind of hinders everybody's else ability to be their free, true self when the person that you're supposed to look up to does never show emotion. And now that he's gone and doing his thing in New York, like everybody's kind of playing a little bit freer. Arenado's got that energy when he doesn't have Taylor Motter and Brandon Crawford around him. But you're seeing guys like Wilson Contreras taking that edge. You see Mason Wynn being that energy guy, Newt Bar keeping things loose. Like, why would you want to mess with that clubhouse culture? Kind of like what you're saying, Jake. Like, if he shows that connection already, why would you want to mess with that when things are going as well as they are right now?
For sure. Our next question comes to us from JDog55, and a quick shout out to JDog, as he is one of the more entertaining interactive readers on the site. I always enjoy interacting back and forth with JDog. This question I'm going to throw to you, Adam. When the calendar flips to August, who will be the Cardinals closer?
Oof, that's a good question. So I mean, right now, let's look at Helsley here. I mean, I think he's kind of rebounded a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. I know he had a couple decent outings here in Cleveland. If not, I think it might have only just been one. Yeah, okay. So yesterday, he pitched not too poorly. Gave up a few hits against Chicago. Cincinnati wasn't bad. The White Sox are the White Sox. And then before that was the whole debacle, giving up runs and hits left and right and center. So as it is right now, over his past four outings, he's been a lot better. So I think we'll see what happens in the month of June or July, next month. If that happens to bring up more cause for concern, then maybe you remove Helsley from the high leverage closing role. But if that were to change, obviously, if he were to falter, you got a guy like Phil Maton who's been lights out this year, right? You With him, I think he's got like a 1.7 something ERA. He's been absolutely outstanding in everything the Cardinals could hope for in a $2 million signing. Unfortunately, with your guy like Kyle Leahy, who was pitching better at the beginning of the year, he started to falter and it hasn't been as effective as of recent. But if I had to guess, it would probably be a guy like Phil Maton if something were to happen to Ryan Helsley, unless something were to happen to Maton himself.
I think that was a trade deadline question, by the way.
Oh, like he's looking for a trade?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
It could be. It could be. I mean, it just, when the calendar flips to August, who will be the Cardinals? Do you think they'll hold on?
They're thinking about trading Helsley. Okay.
Will you hold on to Helsley, or will
Yeah.
you trade it? Like,
Okay,
let's do
I
this.
see now.
What would
I see.
you do, and what do you think the Cardinals will do?
Yeah, I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, you're good.
As it stands right now, I think they hold on to Helsley. I mean, remember last year where everyone's saying trade them, even if the Cardinals were above 500, the run differential was not the greatest, but this year is different. They're actually solidifying and earning these victories, and whenever they are win, you can see them demolishing teams. This was a very resoundingly positive series at Progressive Field, or I forget what it's called now.
That's Progressive.
In
You're right.
Cleveland. It's Progressive Field. Okay, I know it used to be Jacobs Field back in the day, but yeah. So you got Helsley right now. I think it will be. I think the answer is still the same. I think if they trade, if they were to go into the July 30th deadline with a similar record or similar win percentage that they have right now, I think they go all in and probably add a little bit more. I think that's kind of the MO that we've seen from the team in years past. That's what they did last year. If they were to trade Helsley, I think it's safe to say that Maton is also on his way out. So in that case, it may be like Kyle Leahy or I don't know.
Can I
Mats
throw?
would probably be all yeah, Mats would also be gone. Romero might be gone.
Ooh, see,
It
I
may be
think
like Gordon Graceffo for
I
all I know.
I think if they do end up trading Helsley and Maton, I think they would hold on to Romero to make him that closer. Remember I think it was the back half of 2023, was it August, whenever Romero got the save opportunities, and before this, not this one that he had today, but the one previously he had allowed a run. It was his first run allowed, and I think it was 11 and a third innings consecutive. So like we're seeing Jojo Romero return to that form that, he was quickly elevating himself up that ladder. And so I think from the perspective of if it's not Helsley, I would look at a guy like Jojo Romero having that previous closer experience to probably get that opportunity, especially since Romero has another year of team control left, that they would probably try to groom him into that role going into next season. But your points are still well made.
And the reason why I would not maybe side with that so much is that I think the reasons you gave for the Cardinals keeping Jojo Romero in a situation where they would tear down the whatever pieces they have to kind of retool, quote unquote, are the very reasons why I think they would trade him in the first place. He's a guy who's got a year and a half of team control. Once we get to a month from now, he's been good this year. I mean, yes, the ERA is under 3, but the walks have been a problem and the strikeouts are nowhere near. He hasn't been as sharp or as dominant as he was in 2013. He was 2023. He was one of the best left-handed relievers in all of baseball a couple of years ago. And while he's been better this year, like last year was not so great. This year has been a little bit better with, keeping the ball in the ballpark. He's still walking a decent amount of hitters and not striking out guys, but there is value with a guy like Jojo Romero. They may keep him. It's very possible because it's not like he has tremendous value, but it also wouldn't shock me at all if they were to shed him off
I
to
agree.
a contender that might need a lefty out of the bullpen. And potentially, we also saw Phil Maton. If they were to shed the relievers, Maton is gone, Housley's gone, because they could get quite a bit for those two.
No, I fully
if the
agree.
Cardinals just collapse and trade everybody, I'll throw in Riley O'Brien as
that was going to be my other name that I was going to bring up was O'Brien. He's been excellent so far since his recall, and sturdy as it goes. So I would be in favor of that. And the stuff is just, oh man, 99, and it's just as easy as he could just flip it up there. Like exciting stuff for sure.
I chose Riley O'Brien as my Ryan Fernandez of this year coming into the season, so I'm all in on the Rob train. But to jump on the Kyle Leahy train real quick too, like remember that he was being stretched out, quote unquote, in spring training to be a starter. Is that something that they might look at next season too? And he takes the Wainwright train of the closer to starter option. That could be something that we could talk on later, but. Leahy is a very interesting option. I know he's had his struggles lately since being thrown, 6 times a week. But he's someone that I want to keep my eyes on for the long term as well.
Yeah, and our transitioning away from that, I want to get Heather involved here, and our next question comes to us from Saint Love Cards. And as the resident Jordan Walker stan in the group. St. Love Cards asked, trade low on Walker and buy low on Luis Robert Jr. Is that something you would entertain at this point, Heather? Have you jumped off the Jordan Walker train, and would you consider a buy low on Luis Robert Jr. of the White Sox?
How old is Jordan Walker again? 22?
I believe so.
I'm not ready to jump ship on Jordan Walker. Maybe that's stubbornness. But buy low on Luis Robert Jr. I know that was a real big name a little bit ago.
He's been terrible.
Oh, wow. He's had a real rough season so far. I'm like,
IL today too.
Yeah. Well, so this was obviously asked back on Tuesday so like he hadn't gone on the IL yet, but to that same, buying low, like, so the player is clearly not performing at peak level performance, but you're taking two distressed assets to to swap for each other in a change of scenery situation is kind of, I guess, what St. Love Cards is kind of going for here.
Important context is he's getting paid 15 million this year, and he's got two
Yes.
20 million club options.
Significantly more expensive. Yes.
That was my next thing. It's like, because it looks like he's under team control through 2027, so only be another year. The White Sox are reportedly willing to include cash to move him. It's according to MLB trade rumors.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm not ready to give up on Walker, especially for like, that's just the bottom line. He's only 22. I still believe he's going to come around. These are basically his AAA seasons we're seeing, but at the big league level.
Yeah.
Because he kind of skipped AAA, so I'm not ready to jump ship on that just yet.
Go chase yourself, White Sox. We're keeping them.
Yeah. You keep your socks away.
Keep your distressed asset. We'll keep ours.
If I could jump in as the resident Chicago area person who listens to
here we go.
Of course, here we go. Yeah.
Well, I listen to Chicago sports radio just to be an educated person to be able to talk back at other Chicago
I'm starting to think you're a double agent.
Oh, okay. Well, here, you're going to like this, all right?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Why would you want to trade an underperforming person for another underperforming person? And then this is what I'm talking about with Lou Bob, is how I call him. He came up so young, and the White Sox have been so bad with such terrible coaching that his fundamentals to be able to perform at the major league level are so poor. Watching him throw to the wrong base, round bases the wrong way. Like, that's just something that does not fit with the quote unquote Cardinal way that I know fans are getting sick of hearing. But I don't know if my boy Lou Bob is somebody that fits into what the Cardinals are looking for. I mean, he looks great in a baseball uniform. But just the things that he's lacking right now is stuff that he's going to now have to learn at the major league level. And he's not shown the ability to do that at this point. And I don't care about the cost control or this kind of things. Like, Walker is very cost controlled too. Why not just keep running it out there? I'm with Heather. I'll shoulder the Walker stand as well. You got a City Connect Walker jersey.
There's room on the bandwagon. Everyone left, so
I'm sitting shotgun with the Walker. But yeah, I love the idea of Luis Robert, but for this Cardinal team, I don't see him being what I'd like to see learning the game at this level.
And to that point too, doesn't that feel kind of like, it feels kind of like a lateral, like just a change, but we get someone we as in the Cardinals get someone that's more expensive and older who, like there's this joke that Taylor Tomlinson, she jokes about having to like get all your character flaws out before the river thaws over and they're stuck there. And so it's kind of like we get someone who's already, the river is thawed. And so this is just who he is, these like, fundamentals, and with Walker, there's still time. There's still time to fish some of that trash out before the river thaws and it's stuck. So
I think
also the club option should be declined, by the way.
Yeah.
$20 million is not worth $20 million anymore.
I agree with you guys, but for slightly different reasons. I mean, I obviously I think the biggest thing you mentioned, Heather, was the cost control part, where, with a guy like Luis Robert, he's going to be costing, this is a guy that got paid $100 million before he ever stepped foot on a major league field. In terms of the fundamentals, I mean, yeah, like maybe he'll throw to the wrong base every once in a while, but by and large, at the end of the day, he struggled recently, but at his peak, only a couple of years ago, this guy was an MVP caliber player. He was a 3.5 WAR player in 68 games in 2021, was 11 points above league average in terms of WRC plus in 2022. And then obviously 2023, he was a 5-win player with elite defense, good base running, and really good hitting. The thing with Luis Robert is that he's just forgotten how to hit, and that's everything, right? So it would be difficult to justify trading much to go get him. I feel like giving up on a guy like Jordan Walker, which, I've been on record stating that I'm not too fond of him anymore, like the way that I used to be. But given the fact that Walker makes a league minimum salary because he's still within the first 3 years of team control, Luis Robert has what 2.5 years left of team control left, and he's making a decent amount of money. Even if the White Sox adding cash, I mean, shoot, you're looking at a guy who's got a 63 WRC plus. So is Jordan Walker. They're both awful.
Mhm.
So if we're gonna have awful production in the outfield at one of the positions, you might as well take the guy who's making $750,000 versus like what 15, $20 million,
Yeah.
whatever Robert's making right now. I think the answer is as simple as that.
Also, can I just say we might be able to get Luis Robert in the offseason if we really wanted to. His club option
Still DFA?
declined.
Yeah,
Just decline the club option for $2 million.
that's true. That's
Paying
true.
20 million.
Well, here's the thing with the White Sox is they're not paying anybody else, right? And so would they be more inclined to pick up that option for the hopes that he could rebound and then they could sell him at a more peak value? So like there could be another school to that thought.
I get that viewpoint, but man, he's
I'm
just
with
been
Gabe. Yeah.
so
No,
bad.
for sure, and I think just for the context of the conversation, I think what St. Love Cards is kind of going for is the player who's proven it at the major league level, as opposed to the player who hasn't really shown a longevity of traction at the major league level. Not saying that that's what I would do or that I agree with it or would be on board with Luis Robert for Jordan Walker, but I think that's kind of the impetus of where it's like, hey, this player's already proven it at the major league level, and Walker's struggling to just kind of get his footing. So I thought it was a worthy question to kind of debate, but I think I'm with everyone else that I would rather just stick with Walker rather than move on to somebody who may have already peaked. So this next question, this one is going to go around the room to everybody. These last three questions are going to go around to everybody. Let's try and keep our answers relatively, short and compact, so that way this doesn't get too long and drawn out. The first question is from Redbird Rooter, and his question is, between now and the beginning of next season, who should the Cardinals trade and why? And I will start with Gabe.
Okay. So can I go with somebody in the minor leagues?
Sure.
Yeah,
They didn't specify.
A little bit of a swerve here and say Jimmy Crooks. Because, sorry, if Jimmy Crooks fan, sorry. But the problem is that, okay, you got Herrera and Paz. I like Paz, okay? He's closer to a DFA candidate than he is to having trade value, I think. That might be a hot take. I don't think he has that much trade value. Is my stronger point. So I don't think it would really worth it to trade, especially with what he brings to the pitching staff. And Herrera's bat is just unbelievable. And then I think Bernal is a better prospect behind him. So maybe you can try Herrera again a little bit more at catcher next year. Trade Crooks for an upgrade in another spot. I think you got to trade one of these catchers this offseason. And I'm just picking Crooks. That's really my main point. And I think Herrera's bat is too good to be traded. I think Paz doesn't bring back enough in a trade to make it worth trading him. And I like Bernal more than Crooks. So sorry to Jimmy Crooks, but that's my pick for who I would trade between now and opening day next year.
Scott, we'll jump to you.
Thank you. Just to jump on that, Gabe, I think Pages is the one that needs to be traded, but I think that's after this season because of Jimmy Crooks. I think Pages is what he is, and this is as good as he's going to get. And you've got better prospect capital in Crooks, Bernal, and even Reinel Rodriguez that, if one of those three doesn't work, you got another couple options. Maybe Pages doesn't bring up enough, but you got to see what one of these catchers can bring back. I don't think Herrera, Jake, we've talked about this. I don't think Herrera is going to be a catcher in the future.
Nope.
So clearing out that catcher room, I agree with you, Gabe, 100%. It needs to happen. And I think Pages is going to be an option to get rid of him and then bring up Crooks. If he doesn't work, bring up Bernal. If Bernal doesn't work, bring up Rodriguez. So that's where I'm at.
Adam, we'll throw it over to you next.
Yeah, my answer is going to be insert 40 to 45 FV prospect here. Just simply because I don't see, and I see why the two of you went minor leaguers, even though I disagree with who you picked, and I'll explain that in a second. The reason why I say minor leaguer is because I think they're going to be in a position to contend, which they means they're going to be buying not someone insane to the point where they'd be trading like a Weatherhold or a Tin Cans or Quinn Matthews, Dakota Roby, Sean Henderson type player. Maybe, they give up on a guy like a Juan Bin Cho or some other player, even Juan Bin Cho at this point. I don't even know. to try to acquire another reliever in the bullpen or maybe a back end starter because we've seen them do that, or maybe another bat in the lineup. We'll see what happens. The problem with trading Jimmy Crooks and or Pedro Pages is because a guy like Pedro Pages has really come around as a very solid backup catcher. He just can't hit, and we know that. Herrera, the opposite, can absolutely crush the baseball, but can't catch. And I think the ship has sailed based on what we've seen from the Cardinals as having Herrera as a full-time catcher. They're putting Pozo in there even when Herrera is healthy. He does catch every once in a while, but I think they feel more comfortable with Pozo as the one third catcher behind the plate, and Pages is the two thirds guy. With a guy like Jimmy Crooks, he's an elite defender and he hits well enough to be the everyday guy. And I think he could absolutely take those reins when he's right in the big leagues, despite Bernal being as good as he has been, who's going to be a top 100 prospect. I think you answer that question when you get there. You figure that out. And in terms of trading catchers, that's such a hard position to develop players at, especially up the middle. I think you hoard all of them, and the more the merrier. I just don't like trading catchers or guys up the middle. That's just my take.
Heather, who would you trade from the Cardinals and why?
Well, luckily, I wrote an entire choose your own adventure book on how to do this.
Nice plug.
It's not necessarily who I would trade because I am attached to all the players and I wouldn't want to trade any of them because I'm too sentimental. But who they probably should trade, I think, is they should trade Lord Arenado of the Sapphire Glove, third in name, first in war, yet haunted by whispers of exile.
This is fun.
Nolan Arenado. I feel like that would clear salary and make space at third base for like a Nolan Gorman or how do you pronounce this guy's last name?
Sajaci.
You guys have said Sajaci, thank you. I was like, I know you guys have said it a million times and it's like not clicking in my head. I'm like, Sagasi. Thomas Sajaci. It could clear space, for those players. That's who I think they should trade if they had to trade someone.
And I guess I'm going to have the spiciest name of all. I'm trading Lars Nootbaar in the offseason. That is spicy. You've gotten a full season of production from him. One of the biggest questions coming into the season was health. That would be assuming that he continues it throughout the whole season, of course. That he would have 2 years of control remaining, which means he would have, a fair amount of value still attached to him. We know pretty confidently that the Cardinals will probably not be interested in paying him when it comes to free agency. And most importantly, they need to open up a spot for JJ Weatherholt because that kid is coming soon. So to which you can shift Donovan to left field as an everyday left fielder, or we've also seen the emergence of Alec Burleson in left field as well. And he's taken strides as a defender. It's not the prettiest, most elegant, outfield, but he is rating out as a league average 0 outs above average in the outfield this season. And so there has been, some marginal improvement to where he's passable out there, and the bat absolutely plays as a corner outfield bat. So I think from this perspective, you have Lars Nootbaar that you can use to get a piece or two that you may be looking at and are missing for, like you had mentioned, Adam, where you're in a spot to contend, and it might be a situation where you're getting back a major league pitcher who's established, but is also for a team that is in desperate need of some offense, and that's where you can kind of go with that Lars Nootbaar and kind of that plug and play, and kind of in an older way or an older fashion, kind of that classic baseball trade where you get, an asset for an asset at the major league level and kind of, each fill each other's needs. So for me, Lars Nootbaar, and I will be writing an article about this and kind of laying this out and detailing this near the end of the season, but it's nothing personal against Nootbaar, obviously. I just don't think the Cardinals are going to wind up paying him, and if they're not going to invest in him long term, then they might as well extract max value for him and put themselves in a situation where they are more well-rounded to compete going forward.
Yeah, can I respond real quick?
Sure.
Lars Nootbaar is starting to enter that Jack Flaherty territory where people have assumed he will go for some crazy free agent price for so long that past the point where I don't think that's really true anymore. I don't know. I feel like he's going to be reasonably priced at this point. I don't know, unless he like truly breaks out. He seems like a mid-tier free agent to me, which is like right in the Cardinals' wheelhouse. Just want to throw that out there.
Well, again, how are you clearing space for Weatherholt if not moving?
I don't think Weatherholt's playing the outfield.
Well, what I'm saying is like you can move Donovan from second to left field and you are able to have that spot for Weatherholt come opening day should he show that he's ready. And if he's not ready, you keep Donovan at second base, you start Weatherholt in AAA, and you can play an Alec Burleson in left field.
I don't think our outfield depth's that great still. I'm still not a huge believer in Burleson playing the outfield, to be perfectly honest. I know you have a limited amount of places to put him, but I mean, anyway, you can go to the next question. But basically, I am much less convinced that we have the outfield depth to trade a legit outfielder in this offseason if we're truly competing next year or even the year after.
Well, even so, they could always go out and sign some $2 or $3 million stopgap option to just kind of, $2
or $3 million. That's a bench player.
Exactly, but you're not wanting to clog that up long term. That's why I'm like, you don't want to go for somebody who's like you're committed to playing.
Worse. That's what I'm saying. That you're getting worse clearly. If you're replacing Lars Nootbaar with a $2 to $3 million guy,
not if you're getting yourself some sort of starter that's going to give you a like what you don't have currently.
All right.
So the next question comes to us from London Birds. London Bird posts this query. Staying within the bounds of reality, so not Kyle Tucker, who is the most desirable free agent out there or trade available this offseason? And I will start with Scott.
I'm going to go from one hitter and one position or in one pitcher. I'm going with Austin Hayes for the outfield because if we had more time, I would definitely say a left-handed outfielder needs to be traded. There's maybe be on the lookout on Viva El Birdos for something talking about that here in the future. And then if I was talking about the pitching side, I would love somebody like Gregory Soto, a flame-throwing left-handed reliever option to get John King out of the Cardinals bullpen.
Adam, let's go to you next.
I'm gonna. So it's for this off season or now?
Yeah, the off season.
Okay. So whether it's at the I was scared my answer was gonna be boring, but it looks like it'll be fine based on what Scott said. Whether it's at the whether
Shots
it's at
fired.
the well, mine is also gonna be boring too. So we're in the same boat there. Whether it's going to be this offseason or on July 30th, I'm gonna say Jake Bird from the Colorado Rockies. He's gonna be, whenever a crappy team ends up just birthing a 1 to 1.5 plus WAR reliever out of nowhere, they're going to trade. Like Jake Bird is on his way out. That's it's a matter of when, not if. And he's probably a Dodger or a Yankee or a Cub or a Brave or something like that. And he's not going to be a Cardinal, but hey, a man can dream, can't he?
How do you view like Seth Halverson and Angel Chiavi? Are those are a couple other of their relievers who have at least some intriguing stuff.
I mean, let's take a look, shall we? I mean, I don't have it pulled up.
All right, we'll move on to Gabe and we'll come back to that. While you're looking that up.
To your point is normally correct. Have you met the Colorado Rockies though? Who was the 38-year-old reliever they held on to when they didn't have a chance of making the playoffs that year?
Daniel Bard.
Thank you.
When was that?
That was a couple of years ago. They don't behave like a normal major league team, so they may very well hold on to him because they're like, oh, we need all the relievers we can get because we are the Colorado Rockies. We play at Coors Field. If anybody works here, we're not trading them. But anyway, my answer is Mackenzie Gore.
Interesting.
I don't know if the Nationals are.
They trade him.
I don't know if they're interested in giving up on the next 2 years. They're pretty bad right now still, and they could get a pretty good haul for him. And he's got 2 years of team control. And I don't know. I'm not crazy about most of the free agent options. They're either like over 30 or Dylan Cease. He seems a little inconsistent to me, but my answer is Mackenzie Gore and. I mean, my real answer is Cal Tucker, but I know we were supposed to be reasonable here.
All right, yeah.
That might actually be fair. Now that I look at it, that was a good. Yeah, I was like, wait, what? And then I saw that he only had 2.5 years of team control left. It's very possible they deal him.
Who are you referencing there, Adam?
Jake Bird.
Kenzie Gore.
Oh, okay.
Mackenzie Gore.
Yeah.
Heather, who are you targeting in the offseason?
Oh gosh, it seems like they need pitching. I was trying to look at I was trying to quickly look up Merrill Kelly from the Diamondbacks to see
That's a very Cardinals-esque pitcher.
yeah. I'm trying to see. I was like, is he a free agent in 2026 and that's what I want, or do I want 2025? I'm like, no, I think 2026. I think that's a possible answer. This is me cramming at the last minute, like trying to find. I know you sent these in ahead of time. I should have been more prepared, and I did. But then I was looking at one of the things I had written down, and I'm like, he's not a free agent. Why did I write that? And then I'm like, I have to come up with something else. So that's someone I'm thinking they need pitching though. Like a Merrill Kelly or Frankie Montez.
Ew, gross. He got destroyed by the Pirates today.
Walker Buehler.
Gross.
None of these are very exciting though.
Yay, nobody's taking my guy. Yay.
Okay, yeah, you go. Someone else talk. I don't really know.
So
I'm just suggesting a few things. I want a pitcher, though.
I'm surprised. Well, you and I are in lockstep then, because I'm surprised you guys overlooked this guy. Dustin May, if you believe the injuries are behind him, he will be 28 for all of the 2026 season. Guy throws 100, has an electric arm. From my perspective, I think whenever at the end of the season and we're looking kind of forward and what the Cardinals are going to need going into 2026, I think it's another starter to go with Sonny Gray and Matthew Liberatore at the top of the rotation. And so I think Dustin May would fit in as a fine number 3 starter in that situation. I also...
Do you think he's going to bounce back? Because he hasn't been that great.
I do have some concerns more with health than bounce back, honestly. Being a high that heavy sinker, I think will play really well in front of the defense that the Cardinals put out there, and so I think that he has a kind of like a souped up Palante in kind of the way I'm thinking about it. Where Palante kind of lives in that 94 to 96 range. Dustin May's hitting 99 with his sinker consistently, and so. Sinker, cutter, slider, sweeper, it moves all over the place. It's really, really, high end stuff if he can harness it and kind of just trust it and continue to work through some of the injuries that he's had. So again, that was like my qualifier was like, if you believe the injuries are behind him. Obviously you have, high end left-handers like Ranger Suarez and Framber Valdez who will be available. I don't know if they'll be in the Cardinals price range or not. The other two that you mentioned Dylan Cease, he's one. Michael King is another one. I think it's somebody that we can, comfortably put in that top 3 of the rotation to where you feel really good going into a playoff series next year where, you could win a division series at the very least with that.
At risk of being boring, I wanted to say that Dustin May and Michael King were my number 3 and 4 on my list.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's do our final question of the show. This also comes to us from London Bird. Hello, Governor. Thank you very much. Hat tip to you. When do you believe the Cardinals will be a top 10 club again? His opening day 2026, 2027, or 2028? Kind of where do you think the Cardinals return to baseball relevancy comes? And I will start with Heather.
The end of this year, baby.
Whoa,
no.
There it is.
No, realistically, probably 2027, but they're not doing that bad. They could go for a run. Like, I don't see it. I was actually just checking like the overall standings to see, because I'm like, are they not? Did they mean a top 10 overall in the MLB or just in the National League? I'm like, are they not a top 10 now?
I think top 10 overall.
They are top 10 overall.
Ooh.
It says 11 here, but I don't think it's updated to today. So it's are they not a top 10 now? Like, I don't know, maybe the end of the year, right? So yeah, I'm gonna. That was my joke answer, kind of, but I'm kind of serious
But
about it. So
she's standing on it. So she's saying
yeah,
it's
I'm standing on
2025.
business.
That's it.
2020 into 2025. I'm standing. What is that Justin Bieber thing? I'm standing on. Don't you see I'm standing on
that's right.
business?
That's it. You got it. You're doing it.
So that's me.
All right, Adam, go ahead.
I was gonna go and say they probably already are one. If not, then they're damn near. I mean, they're what? I think they're like ninth or 10th in run differential standing. And then I think, I mean, to a little bit of a badumts kind of thing. All the cards fell in their favor here today because they won. The Cubbies lost, the Padres lost, the Brewers, I think, lost
They did.
to the Rockies today.
Yep.
Yeah, they just got rockied. So everything kind of, and the Mets lost, I think, too. They got demolished by the Pirates. So the bottom dwellers kind of did their jobs today. It's played out very well for the Cardinals. I think they might be there from a talent perspective. If not, they're on the outside looking in with the talent they have in the pipeline. And if they were to make a move at the deadline to acquire a bullpen piece, which they're not going to go all out, we know that. But if they get a Jake Bird,
I'm
or
available to
if they get a
pitch
Scott
if need
Plaza,
be.
if they get a Scott Plaza, then shit, you never know. But yeah, I mean, I think it's very plausible that either right now or by the end of the year, if they were to make some moves to kind of move, like, to try to bolster this roster for a playoff run within the next month, it's very possible it could happen right now or within the next few months by the end of the season, just like Heather said.
Scott, go ahead, man.
I tried to look at this with a little bit more realism. No offense to Heather and Adam here, but you got to figure there's going to be some turnover after this season with Helsley, Maton, Matt, Petty. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that.
God,
But
you're so boring, Scott.
oh my God, what do I know? Kick me off. That I think this year, while I will go on record to say that I anticipated this year being a competitive year, that 2026 will possibly be a step back. While Bloom figures out what he wants to be doing with the team, figures out who fits where. Maybe Arenado's here, maybe he's not. So what I put was 2027, why not? But 2028 is at the very latest, they will be back in the top 10.
Gabe, go for it, man.
Well, I would say, I mean, I lean more towards this year than anything like you two because they kind of are playing like it right now, and I don't see them selling to make themselves worse.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm always like the guy who's gonna be the guy who's like, oh yeah, we're gonna win the division this year. Why not? It's more fun to do that. And so that's why I always go on the more optimistic side on these kind of questions.
Well, I guess I'm just as boring as Scott because I said 2027 as well. I think that where they are now is awesome and it's found money, and we should continue to ride this train for all that it's worth and enjoy the experience while it's happening. Where they are a truly established top 10 team consistently, where we can trust where they are. I think 2027 is where we will have. JJ Weatherholt will have had a year under his belt. I think that, Ivan Herrera will have had 2 more years of growth, and hopefully he's more settled into a defensive home by that point. Victor Scott, what will Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman be at that point? What kind of steps forward will a TK Roby, a Quinn Matthews, a Tink Hence, all of the guys that are just in that crop of it's just on the precipice of getting there. What will they look like? And we'll have a more firm understanding of kind of what the next 3 to 5 years will look like for the Cardinals. I think 2027 is where it's like you can write it from the way that I kind of took this question is like preseason. So like at the preseason, where can you write them in as a top 10 team? I think 2027 is right about that range. And so, this also is dependent upon continuing to supplement the roster with pieces that highlight the young talent. But I'm excited for the future based off of what we've seen so far this year. Any closing thoughts? Anything that we missed tonight, guys, that you kind of want to go over before we wrap it up?
I'd love to touch on J-Dog here really quick. Those stubborn 10 pounds aren't going away. I've been running every day this month, and I'm still checking the scale at a
That's
spot that
the
I don't want to be
weight
at.
of the Cardinals season. That's you just putting the weight of the Cardinals season on your
Oh,
shoulders.
there we go.
He's
There we go.
That's what
stressed.
it's from. Yeah, me too. Me too,
I'll
guys.
I'll keep wearing it then if that means the Cardinals are going to the postseason. Give me all-
Right. I'm sorry, but it's not going away. Someone has to carry it, and unfortunately, it's us.
It's all the stress eating from the cardiac cards and coming back and all
Right,
that. That's what
exactly.
it
If they
is.
don't
Cardiac
start
carbohydrates.
winning
That's it.
before the 7th inning, yeah, I'm gonna keep stress eating.
It's going to be
course.
an uptick in cardio infarctions in St. Louis throughout this year, I think. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Viva El Birdos podcast. For writers Adam Akbani, Gabe Simons, Scott Plaza, and site manager Heather Simon, I'm your host, Jake Wood, and we will talk to you again next week. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Viva El Birdos podcast. Please leave a rate and review on your favorite platform and turn on those bell notifications so you can be notified the moment our newest episode is released. As always, make sure to give us a follow on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. Just type in Viva El Birdos on any platform to find us. Have a great day and thanks for listening.